I've lived in Gladstone for almost 3 years now, and I really love the scenery and beautiful beaches that we have. I enjoy being active in the community. I play rugby league for the Gladstone Women's Wallabies team as well, so I enjoy getting out there, making friends. Yeah, it's a pretty good team. We're better this year though, so that's good. So I'm also on the committee for the Youth Council. It's a really rewarding experience. I would definitely recommend it to our upcoming future youth as well, to encourage them to speak about issues that impact society and their thoughts and feelings. Issues such as mental health, bullying, environmental issues as well. I think that they're pretty big issues. Being a part of the Youth Council provides me with the platform and resources to enforce better change for our youth and our community. It makes me proud to put on my uniform every morning, every time that I get up out of bed, get ready, and it just makes me really happy to be part of a big organisation that's trying to be there for the community. I was really excited when I got the phone call. I was like jumping up and down. Oh, Mum, got the job! Yeah, she was really excited. She was really happy for me, so it was a proud parenting moment for them as well, for my parents. And yeah, I just felt really overwhelmed and really grateful that I was given the opportunity to kickstart my career with council, so I'm grateful to be here. My name is Stefani and I currently work for GIC as a business administration trainee for the Biosecurity and Environmental Health Department.
Good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting of the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday the 4th of June 2024. Call for apologies, all present, so no apologies this morning. The next item on the agenda is the messages of condolence. Councillors, any messages of condolence? No? Thank you. The next item is the prior notifications of conflicts of interest, and I hand over to Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I, Councillor Leanne Patrick, have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to a matter discussed at last week's Councillor information session. Council is undertaking a strategic land review, and the strategic acquisition of land was discussed. Some of this land was located in the vicinity of my husband's business. As a result of this declarable conflict of interest, I will remove myself from any discussions and will not participate in the discussion relating to the acquisition of the relevant parcel of lands.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. No councillor resolution is required. Any other conflicts of interest, councillors? No, thank you. The next item on the agenda before we move to our deputation is the Mayor's statement on current issues. And of course, Volunteers Week was held on the 19th to the 25th of May. And as previously mentioned at the table, it's the volunteers that make our community so great. And I want to thank all councillors who attended the number of events around the region from the 19th to 25th of May to acknowledge and celebrate and thank our volunteers across the region. Huge 1770 Festival on the 24th to the 26th of May, I believe it was about that time. It's a couple of weeks ago now. What a fantastic event that is for our region as well. So thank you, councillors, and thank you to the team at DCTC and all the volunteers who put that on for our region. I'm sure they're looking forward to an even bigger event again next year. National Sorry Day morning tea was held on the 27th of May, and the QCWA conference was held last weekend. I thank Councillor Patrick, who did attend, and other councillors who were there as well. I'm not sure if the deputy might have been there as well, so thank you. And of course, this weekend just gone, we had the EcoFest, huge event at the Tondoon Botanic Gardens, one of the biggest and best EcoFests, I'm advised. And thank you, Councillor Holzheimer and Councillor Patrick, who attended that event as well. And I'm sure other councillors were there too. Thank you, councillors. Upcoming events in the Gladstone region, we have Rainbow on the Reef Pride event. That's this weekend, Friday the 7th to Sunday the 9th of June. Check out the GRC website for more information. Of course, we have the Mayor's Youth Dinner. This year we're having a youth dinner rather than a youth breakfast. And that's for people aged 12 to 24, and we'd like to recognise them for their achievements and contributions to the Gladstone region, and it'll be held on the 7th of August at the GECC, and nominations close on the 17th of June. So that's whether it's sporting, whether it's cultural, whether it's in their employment or whatever it is, we want to celebrate and acknowledge our young people in the Gladstone region. So please make sure you nominate an outstanding young person for the Mayor's Youth Dinner this year. Our 2025 apprenticeship and traineeship program is open, and I call for people to put their nominations in, and there will be an information session held at the GRC's Phillip Street Communities Precinct, I believe that is, Kylie? I think that is the 19th of June. For anyone interested, have a look on GRC's website for more information. Our 2025 intake, obviously, the applications will be received shortly, the information session, and then they will start next year. It's been a fantastic program, and ask anyone who's been involved, and if you turn up to the information session, you not only hear about what the role could involve from our leaders, but also hear about first-hand experience from our current 2024 intake of apprentices and trainees. And another huge event in the Gladstone region this year, the 22nd to the 23rd of June, is the Mount Larcombe District Show, and I'm sure everyone will be there with absolute bells on. Councillors, the next item, before we go to our deputation, is the confirmation of the minutes, G2.1. The confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the 21st of May 2024. Remover, please. Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Any business arising? No business arising, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to G3.1, which is our deputation from Gladstone Region Engaging in Action Together, GRT. And I thank Lorna, Melanie and Courtney, and I'll hand over to you, Lorna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. It's very exciting to be here to present to our new council. It's our first opportunity to do that with you all in your new seats. So congratulations, and thank you very much for having us here this morning. It's our pleasure to be here to provide an update on behalf of our community of the great work and progress that's taking place under GRT as part of the Stronger Places, Stronger People initiative that brought funding into our region in 2019 as a very early start to what we're seeing now as community-led and place-based work and change in our region. A little bit about GRT, just to give you some background. So Gladstone Region Engaging in Action Together, GRT for short. As I mentioned, place-based, community-led. We have a community vision of opportunity, equity and quality of life for everyone in our community. This is based on a foundation that if we can get things right for our little E's, for our kids and our families, then we'll be able to create great well-being across our community, for the whole of our community. So it recognises that children born into safe homes with happy, healthy parents are statistically more likely to have a happy, healthy life and access employment and education opportunities. So our main remit and focus is on our families and children in creating well-being in our community. To do this, we have a community-designed and endorsed action plan that prioritises a number of key areas, in particularly families having access to life's basics, feeling independent and having purpose, our children feeling safe, happy and loved, growing up at home with their families, and our children starting school ready to learn and on track to thrive. So there's a number of key focus areas in that community-designed action plan. Again, very strongly focused on families and children based on that foundation that if we can get it right there, then we can get it right for everybody. So the work that we've been doing since 2019 really builds on a whole range of community strengths and assets that occurred over decades in the Gladstone region. We've got a lot of strengths here to showcase to other locations, and we're often regularly contacted by other locations asking for case studies locally.
Sorry, Lorna. So the Deputy Mayor's just realised she might have a conflict of interest, and I'd just like her to raise that.
I apologise for this. I'm a director in Strong Communities Limited, and we just very, very recently signed a funding agreement with GRT, and I'm not part of the operational situation, so a lot of the times I don't. It's not at the front of my mind, so I would like to leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Muscat always has our best questions at the end as well.
I know. Not today. I'll find one for you.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate it. So GRT really has been built off the foundations that our community had already created prior to the Stronger Places, Stronger People initiative opportunity for our region. And I think it's really nicely captured here in the capture from community about their aspirations and expectations right back in 2015, but we have tested this again and again with community and it still holds true. That as a mature regional community, we accept the trade-offs that are required between the long-term and short-term priorities and between different needs, but there's a really high expectation of transparency and collaborative practices across all stakeholders, and that our community has an equal say and voice in our future. So I think that's we have a very astute community in Gladstone, and we've got this fantastic strength here that our community are really quite active and participatory when it comes to having insights and sharing their experiences, their lived experiences, to be able to inform great outcomes for our future in the region. And what we're seeing at the moment is there's this massive window of opportunity. So philanthropic funders across Queensland and across Australia have got a big interest in increasing investment into Queensland compared to other states, which have been receiving a good line share for a while. And then we're also seeing this great appetite from government to work differently with communities. In fact, Gladstone is one of 6 communities nationally that's been invited by government, both at federal and state level, to partner in shared decision-making of communities and governments going forward, which is really exciting for our region. We're also seeing that appetite coming through from our corporate sector, so not just philanthropics, but our local investors across industry, so our existing industry and those new proponents that are being welcomed to the region currently, that are asking the question all the time, what can we do to help? How can we help create a great future for our region? So the partnership that GRT and Council share is very active. I'm very pleased to share with you, particularly our newer councillors, that we've had quite a strong partnership for the last few years, and we've got council representation in a very meaningful way on our GRT leadership group, which includes 3 levels of government participating. We have annual planning and regular scheduled progress updates together across a number of different departments within council that interface with the work of community under GRT, and participation in issue-specific working groups, including housing, which regularly sees either our mayor or councillors represented in that group, alongside the offices of our state and federal members, and state government departments, cross-sector representation, and our community from a housing supports perspective, and across other projects that you'll hear about in a moment. We collaborate across community engagements, various projects and activities, particularly in building capacity of social sector, and also have a data sharing agreement as well across council, which helps to inform community about those actions that we can take to make improvements for wellbeing.
Thanks, Lorna. So GRT is a place-based community-led initiative. So community voice is at the heart of all of the work that we do. And that's not short-term consultation periods, that is ongoing engagement and conversations with our community to be able to capture insights and understand some of the local issues that arise. As such, we are directed then by community on when and where to engage. So in the past, we have visited a number of different places, including motels where homeless persons are living, the soup kitchen, so just some places to reach vulnerable groups and be able to listen to their stories. So we also have a range of working groups, and they are listed here on the slides. So this is a demonstration of how we are community-led, and this includes a diverse range of stakeholders that come together across sectors and professions with representation from 3 levels of government, non-government, human service sector, industry and commerce, and the community, all with knowledge and expertise to inform the focus topics. So we will provide an example of the Housing Roundtable shortly. So we do have a number of early years projects. So GRT's focus is on the early years, which is 0 to 5 and that prep age. So we have a particular focus on child development and support for parents. So an example is the Maternal Health Project. An overview of this project is available on our website, and we will have some packs that will be handed out to you at the end of today that you can also take away and review. So this project has been informed by community. So over the past several years, maternal health has been raised as an issue locally. And we've also received data from Queensland Health's perinatal statistics. So the next actions of this project is to be able to understand barriers to early pregnancy supports, as mothers in the Gladstone region are delaying early antenatal care. So we know that there are a lower percentage of mums who are receiving antenatal care in the first trimester, so in the 0 to 14 weeks of gestation, and a higher percentage of mums that are delaying antenatal care, so not seeking care until the second trimester. And we know that early care does provide the best outcomes for our mums and bubs. Over to Court.
Thanks, Mel. So another example of an early years project is the parenting programs and supported playgroups, which are recognised in community as an asset and are in demand. So evidence-based parenting programs and playgroups help our parents to grow confidence, knowledge and skills for improved parent-child attachment so that our children feel safe, valued and loved. And it also builds understanding of child development and where to go for early supports. So GRT are partnering next with local service providers, so strong communities, as well as university researchers to assess the availability, participation equity, and the effectiveness of programs to create lasting outcomes for our families accessing the right support at the right time. There are also a range of activities GRT are working on together with our social services sector to improve capacity building. So one example of this is the 3-year community designed initiative focused on addressing collective training needs. So this commenced at the start of the year, supported by Rio Tinto, Gladstone Operations and GRT as a mitigation strategy for skill shortages impacting our region. So this initiative will deliver a suite of prioritised training for frontline workers to confidently and effectively support our community. So the collective buying power of this initiative facilitates equitable access to specialised training that isn't available here locally, and where the costs of our staff going outside the region for travel to attend training, or the cost to bring a fit-for-purpose specialist training provider to our region, where the cost would normally be a barrier to that participation. Thanks.
Thanks, Courtney. Unfortunately, we won't have time to tell you about every initiative that our community are operating under this funding at the moment, just due to your agenda today. But we will be providing an opportunity for you to learn more about some of these initiatives. The one we were really keen to tell you about, though, and not miss out on, is the Gladstone Region Housing Strategy, which is developed by the Housing Roundtable, who established in November last year and have been working really intensively to pull this strategy together. It's just in its infancy at the moment. It's aimed at providing the right mix and location of housing at the right prices across our region, and creating a responsive market to housing needs with the appropriate agility and flexibility to respond to change, which, as we know in the Gladstone region, we do have quite strong fluctuations in our housing demands. It includes 5 key elements, including the lessons learned from the past. So we have some rich stories of different trends over time in the Gladstone region. So using statistical analysis to record those trends, and also the qualitative feedback to be able to look at the causal factors during those periods. Development of a supply plan to be able to plan the right accommodation in the right locations at the right costs to manage our growth impacts across the region. An investment plan which really looks at those community endorsed and designed solutions to some of our housing needs, and provides a funding ready investment opportunity for stakeholders coming into our region. A monitoring model, and this is really built off the fantastic example of council from flood monitoring and from disaster management planning. So the monitoring model will help to monitor on an ongoing basis our progress towards improved housing solutions, and also to be able to pick up triggers of escalations in housing needs or changes in need. And then with using the response mechanism, which is effectively mirroring the local disaster management group and local disaster management plan, that response mechanism will enable the Housing Roundtable to step up or step down according to need as those escalations and triggers start to occur. So the housing strategy is a really great example of how data is being used in some of these project developments as well. Bringing in qualitative and quantitative data, so community voice and lived experience, alongside the statistics that we're very grateful to receive from our government partners and in all 3 levels of government and from community organisations. And then being able to trend that data so we can always see where the key priorities and needs are at any point in time. Really to be able to not only identify but start to define, understand and quantify what those causes and needs are. And then working with those professionals, as explained in some of these examples, being able to co-design solutions that are place-based, so really tailored, fit-for-purpose solutions for our local need, and then be able to monitor and with key measures, social indicators, be able to evaluate whether we are on track and whether we're achieving the outcomes that our community is setting out to achieve. We take a very holistic approach, not only to the individuals in our community, so recognising those social determinants of health that are relevant in a child's life and those protective factors of families that enable our children to thrive, but also looking at the holistic approach to environmental factors. So trying to reduce the siloed effect of looking at impacts in isolation, and really looking at the collective environment that our families and children are experiencing. So that might include not only, for example, industry growth and industry impacts, but looking at social reform within government, policy, legislative changes, our economic environment, whether that be global impacts of financial crises or otherwise, looking at pandemic and local disaster impacts as well. So looking at everything as a whole versus in isolation. And that's really to be able to empower our community to respond to those interdependent impacts that we see versus trying to understand them in isolation. So in addition to the Gladstone Region Wellbeing Action Plan that we've referenced some of the projects of today that is very specific to families and children, when we were engaging with our community and checking that we had captured their aspirations and their solutions correctly in that plan, the request from community back to GRT in use of the SPSP funding was what happens to all those other things that are part of the social fabric of our community that support our children and families to thrive but aren't family and child specific. So what about our grandparents, and what about those older siblings that are in our youth sector? What about access for our community? How do we factor all those things in? And it was identified that we didn't have a collaborative Gladstone social plan. We have many economic plans and some health plans, but we didn't have a sole social plan. So the request from community was to be able to capture some of those livability and social fabric elements in a social plan, recognising that GRT has limited or finite resources and has already committed to delivering on the families and child's plan, but at least to be able to capture what we're hearing back from community about those other community needs. So we have a record, trying to stop that cyclic conversation that we sort of see in some meetings and on agendas, and to be able to capture something that our community can hold up then when they get asked what are the local needs in Gladstone. Working really closely with council, with different departments across what that social plan might look like and how it fits in not only to council's remit and existing plans, but also at a state and federal level. So as you can see across the bottom of that slide there, that's a tiny tip of the iceberg of the many, many plans that are relative to our region across not only 3 levels of government, but other corporate investors as well. And being able to sort of have a holistic view of those things, but also being able to track each of those actions and outcomes against what community are telling us are the gaps and needs, but still staying very strengths focused, so still building on the assets and strengths that we've got in our community. So we hope that the aim of the social plan really is to be able to connect the dots between the great planning and advocacy that council already does when it comes to change in our community, including economic transition, about the how, what are the things that we need to do. So a lot of those what are the things we need to do are captured already in those plans. And then hoping with council as a key stakeholder alongside other community stakeholders, other government stakeholders and the corporate sector, really be able to get down into that community endorsed prioritisation of need and the plan of how to do it. So again, getting down to those funding ready investments locally on a local basis. Now, as I said, and we're probably already over time, we won't be able to fit everything into our session today. So before I invite questions, I did want to let you know that we'd love to keep you informed in your preferred format, whatever that may look like. We would love to come back and present to you here on a 4-monthly basis, but we also would like to extend the opportunity today for some virtual lunch and learns to try and fit into your busy calendars, so that if there's a specific area of interest that you have in any of that planning, that you can get some more detail around that. And we invite you to let us know if there's other ways that you'd like to receive that information. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorna. Councillor Churchill has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Lorna. Thanks, Melanie, Courtney. Appreciate what you're doing. You seem to be covering a plethora of wants and needs, I suppose, identified or not identified. Perhaps they're coming to you, and I'm pleased, I suppose, to have shared my bit of time on the housing working group or housing forum. I've got a couple of questions, probably, and you mentioned one word there before. You call upon the Gladstone Regional Council for the advocacy. I'd just like to get an understanding of perhaps your role, Lorna, or perhaps GRT's role in that advocacy. Yeah, that's my first question.
Thanks.
So are you an advocacy group as well, or are you collecting and collating and compiling all the data and research and information and give it to everybody else and they become advocates? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Thanks, Councillor Churchill. Really great question. GRT would class itself as a collaboration group versus an advocacy group, but recognising that in order for us to be successful in our region, we need to be able to take multiple pronged approaches. So recognising that council takes a role from an advocacy perspective around issues that sit in other government levels. And certainly we're always keen to share the feedback that we get from community into those processes. So most recently, as you're aware, Councillor Churchill, the Housing Roundtable provided the collection of data that it's been working on to inform the local housing action plan of council. And some of that obviously will end up as an advocacy piece. We also feed our local community feedback into other mechanisms of peak groups that have advocacy processes. And we've seen some great outcomes of that even this last week in terms of some of the investment into early childhood for our state. So we would say that we are a collaboration group versus an advocacy group, but appreciating both are required.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thank you. That gives me a greater understanding. I'm sure others as well. And you mentioned the housing, so I suppose you'll be keenly interested to stay on after your presentation to see this next agenda item, G4.1, I would imagine, if you've had a look at our agenda. My next question appropriately would be, from your presentation, and I make reference to your community cycle, if that's what it's called, on page 16. You've mentioned corporate, and I'll just reflect back on I'm trying to understand the local landscape. You've mentioned the holistic approach of the collective in the environment, the corporate, the government, the industry, and the community. I suppose small business here, small SMEs, are probably the heart and the lifeblood of not only Gladstone but within the region, the city and the villages. I'd just like to get a greater understanding of where our small business is playing an active part in that, I suppose, that cycle that you've got that's taking a holistic approach, because I haven't heard any mention of small business.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Councillor Churchill. Certainly in terms of all of those stakeholders in small business, our definition of community covers everyone in the Gladstone region. So everyone who lives in, participates in, impacts on or is impacted by life in the region. An example of where small business is definitely very front and centre of the work that we're doing is the partnership with Council, Gladstone Engineering Alliance, GAPDL and GCCI, our Chamber of Commerce. And that's specifically aligned to the livability project of Council, where for the last 18 months to 2 years there's been a skills attraction initiative, which is a partnership of those organisations. So that's a good example of one of the initiatives that has particularly small business and our social sector front and centre of where that interest is, and those improvement opportunities to be able to support the profiling of our region as an attractive place to relocate for work.
Okay.
But definitely the voice of all of our community members informs this work.
Okay, and as long as they're being heard, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you,
that.
Councillor.
Councillor Goodluck.
Thank you, Lorna. Just on the housing investment plan, that hasn't been completed yet?
Correct.
So that's still a work in progress?
Correct,
Yeah.
work in progress.
Just for anyone who might be interested, when you're referencing, the options paper for an investor to support that investment into housing, who might that investor be? Is that the philanthropic or the corporate or a mixture of people? This is not necessarily going to be targeted towards, mum and dad investors looking to build their house, or is it?
We're non-exclusive. So any investor is welcome. So we've seen some great examples, for example, in Rockhampton, where community have certainly fundraised to be able to support housing initiatives. And the Housing Roundtable has had presentations from examples like that that have come from other locations. I think that the main approach in that Housing Roundtable is that while it is a closed group of stakeholders who have remits in things like development approvals, regional development, regional investment. It also recognises that housing is an accountability of all of us as community members. So whether we're a mum and dad investor, whether we're a renter, we've all got a responsibility to be able to create a housing environment that is sustainable for our region. So I don't think there's a single stakeholder locally that wouldn't be a part of that picture somewhere.
That's good. And just out of curiosity, is part of the either one of those housing bodies of work, would that be identifying perhaps at a policy level, be it federally, nationally, or even locally, where improvements could be made that will help address housing issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Councillor. So as part of the collective impact approach that we take in Gladstone under this funding, one of the key interest areas is system change. So trying to recognise where there are limitations or constraints that are part of the causal factors to some of the issues that we see locally. So there's really no constraint on what those solutions might look like. And that's why I think the advocacy and the collaboration part play a part together. Because if we need our voice to be heard from a regional perspective, it needs to happen at multiple levels and multiple formats. So in terms of the approach that we take,
Open slather.
It's open slather, but it does look at, for example, everything down to zoning. So we're talking also to planning departments. There's been nothing identified in that area yet, but it's trying to understand all of the constraints that might be playing a part in the picture, because housing is such a complex issue. So there's so many variables in the mix. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Patrick.
Good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation this morning. It gives me great joy to see that presentation being a part of the foundation, a member of the foundation leadership team, but watching from afar in the gallery as I've had to step away from the work to now seeing the presentation this morning. It should bring great comfort to our community that not only do we have a very strong economic transition plan, but we are now having an evolving a Gladstone social plan. It's just as imperative to have the economic along with the social service sector. They work hand in hand, and it just really arms our region for investment across all playing fields to be put into the right areas at the right time. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Patrick.
Thanks. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor Matt. There was another one that just jumped out, I suppose, as a result of Councillor Goodluck investigative questions there was, is GRT contributing to, with your information, to the review of our Gladstone Region Planning Scheme?
The simple answer is no.
Why not?
Only in that we don't get down to that level of detail in community space in terms of feedback from community to engage on things that council's already engaging on. So we would normally leave that to the experts in that space. However, it doesn't mean that the Housing Roundtable, for example, might be interested in, again, when looking at constraints, if there are areas that they might want to make recommendations for.
Yeah, okay, then we could talk about this, which I don't plan to, but there might be information. We want to make sure we collate, compile everything, don't want to miss anything. So maybe perhaps if I can make a small suggestion, not only just the housing working group, but just put on the agenda of each of the working groups to make them fully aware that this council is currently going to plan its new vision, its new future. And it's imperative that we get it right.
Yeah.
Not that, yeah, anyway, look, that's for you, but appropriately, it's not just about housing, it's holistic, as you've mentioned in your presentation.
Thanks, Councillor. And I think that's why we're so appreciative that under our partnership with Council, we have council representation at so many of these work fronts. So on the housing working group, as I mentioned, on the Housing Roundtable, Council is present at every single meeting. And it really gives council an opportunity to hear firsthand from those stakeholders too. So it's not us reciting back or providing reports back. It's actually being heard firsthand to be able to be brought straight back to council that day. So I'd like to take that opportunity to say how grateful and appreciative we are of the support that we receive from council as a partner in this work. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorna. Any further questions for the team? I've just sent a message through to Shay. We've got little flyers about our town planning scheme with the QR code on them. So Shay's got some of those for you. So if she's not in here before you leave, please see her on the way out. She can give you as many of those to hand around, because we do want as much public and community feedback as we can on our town planning review. Okay, thanks Lorna, thanks Courtney, and thanks Melanie. The recommendation is that the deputation be received. I have a mover in Councillor Goodluck and a seconder in Councillor Patrick. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you, ladies, and we'll have the Deputy Mayor back in the room, please. The next item probably will interest you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The next item on the agenda is G 4.1, which is the lease of Lot 7 at 2 Dayburns Drive, Community Housing Queensland Limited, and I hand over to the General Manager of Assets and Environment, Mark Francis. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. The purpose of this report is to allow you to consider disposing of Lot 7 on SP 312056, or 2 Dave Burns Drive at the Phillip Street Precinct, for the fulfilment of your strategic priority and vision for the precinct and for housing in the region. You will recall that on the 4th of July 2023 we distributed an expression of interest for the parcel of land. We received 3 submissions and advised you that we had a preferred applicant after assessing that, which was Community Housing Queensland Limited. We have been in contact with CHQL subsequent to their notification that they were the preferred applicant, and we have now a proposal for an affordable housing development of up to 230 dwellings plus supporting services with a target market of over 55s. The recommendation made to you today involves council leasing the lot to CHQL to facilitate a development for a lease term of around about 99 years as a maximum. The purpose of that is to ensure that we can condition a lease to ensure alignment with your strategic vision. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. I just want to say at the outset, this is exactly what is meant to be going in this block of land opposite our community precinct. I just want to make sure we get the recommendation right here to councillors. So I've got some questions, but I'll save them to the end. Who would like to start? Councillor Davis, then Councillor Holzheimer, then Councillor McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark, I just wanted to know, with the 230 dwellings that they're planning on building, will they be rated individually or as a whole package?
I'll need to defer to Mark Holmes in terms of the rating arrangements.
Thank you, Councillor. That will be end up determining what the actual proponent ends up registering those lots as, whether they become through as a community title scheme. Okay. Or as something different as just one whole block. So we'll have to wait at this time. So it's probably a little bit too early to tell what that may look like.
Okay, so at this stage we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Holzheimer.
I think this is really exciting, and this is exactly what the group before us was actually talking about and what the community needs. So yeah, really excited to see this progress. My question is, I think, more around how long do we actually expect it to take before we can see people moving into these homes? And is there any way that we can actually build in for this so that they actually don't blow out on that time frame? Because sometimes that happens, we know that, so that we can see these places as homes as soon as possible.
Great question.
Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Thanks to my colleague Kim Markson, who's been working on the housing working group. We do have a anticipated timeline provided by CHQL just this morning, in actual fact. When the outline proposal was talking about construction and being ready to operate within 18 to 24 months. And they've reconfirmed that this morning. There are, of course, variables within that. The variables being the length of time it may take to secure the necessary building approvals and development applications. But the current indicative timeline and milestone estimates they have is that the commencement date for operations would be in the first half of 27.
Yes?
Yes, beautiful. My other question is, do we have anything that we put in place in regards to the impact on, let's say, the existing use for Phillip Street with that building and that impact that it's going to have on them, and then also on any impact to that infrastructure as well, like our roads, all of that part of it, which I'm sure you do.
We have. Phillip Street obviously has been master planned with this purpose in mind and with this intensity of development in mind. The upgrade to the Phillip Street entrance and the dualling of Phillip Street itself has all provided a really good element trunk infrastructure there. There will, of course, be some calculations and infrastructure charges associated with it to account for the intensification of use and the impact on our infrastructure, and that would be undertaken as part of the development approval process.
Thank you.
We've got Councillor McClintock, Councillor Wagner, then Councillor Goodluck.
Thank you, Mayor Matt. This is obviously tapping into a sector that is in need at the moment, and I think this is incredible. There was 3 applicants, I believe, and this one here was not obviously the most localised person involved with this process. I guess my question is, or can you help us understand a little bit more of how are we making sure that the other 2 in this process are able to continue to push forwards with helping solve this gap in our market in other ways or other areas? Are we supporting them in some way? And how are we making sure that we keep progressing in this gap?
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Interestingly, the Mayor and I met yesterday with one of the other proponents, Gikora, which is... Thank you very much. And they're very happy to see this recommendation coming to Council for a decision in terms of the pressure it takes off the demand in the region. We are speaking, obviously, and we continue to speak and advocate to the other proponents as well, and we're supporting them as we can through our advocacy arrangements, and the working group that we have is well engaged with them.
Yeah, brilliant. Great, thank you.
Just one? I thought you said 3 questions, no? Oh, 3 other
Bonus.
Yeah, gotcha. Sorry. Councillor Wagner.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Originally in the Phillip Street project plan, it was sort of earmarked for aged care. So has there been a shift away from aged care to, because over 55s isn't necessarily aged care?
Can I help?
I think the Mayor's best to explain that to you.
It was not really ever meant to be aged care. It might have been mentioned that in the media, but it was always meant to be retirement living, so that the active residents in those facilities could volunteer or participate across the road in the Phillip Street Communities Precinct. Aged care, if it's high care, like New Auckland Place or Edenvale, not necessarily participating in terms of volunteering and community activities at the Phillip Street Precinct. So there might have been, and I would love to have seen a component of aged care in there, but it was always meant to have active living residences in there so people could participate, community participation, yeah.
Okay.
Please do.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I guess we also moved on from that onto that ageing in place concept. So, and that is kind of where it fits in to solve some of that housing and diversity in the housing options.
Yeah, thank you both, Mayor and Deputy Mayor. Okay, it is a little bit concerning over 55s as retirement when we can't retire until 67, but saying that, and I'm sort of in that over 55 bracket now, which is interesting. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, is the plan for that, are the proponents looking at having that exclusive for over 55s, or what what are they sort of saying that'll be?
The intention is that the main focus is for over 55s. They're talking about potentially having some key worker accommodation as well, which we know is a shortage in the region as well. So while the focus is firmly on over 55s, is the opportunity to take some pressure off demand in other sectors as well.
Mm. And can we put any sort of requirements on them? For one, to have it constructed in a period of time, and two, that there is sort of a percentage of the mix for some of the, I suppose, identified groups in the community that might need housing?
Yes is the answer to that, and that the purpose of our proposing a lease to you is so that it can be conditioned as opposed to disposing of it by sale, in which case we wouldn't be able to keep those conditions on. Certainly it should be noted that a lease negotiation is just that, a negotiation. So while we can seek terms, we may need to come back to the boardroom if the terms which are imposed are not satisfactory to the lessee. However, we're very confident the lessee is well aligned with the council's strategic priorities, and the access to their funding and their business case, as it's been explained to us, seems to indicate that they'll certainly be able to begin operation within their estimated time frame. But we're happy to look at that as a term in the lease.
Excellent. And I'm just wondering too, the parcel of land there, is that its own entity now? Like, has that been subdivided off the greater parcel there? I'm just not sure about the...
Now might be a good time to bring up the parcel of land on the screen. Do we have that yet? I anticipated this question coming, so I had a very similar one. So I've asked the team to be prepared to have the land ready to... It's got to get bigger than that. Okay, good.
It shows that it's residential in there, remember?
It is residential, is it? So where's the boundaries of that? It goes right up the hill, does it? Do they need that much land there? I'm just wondering, what about for future?
Sorry, I'm not sure that they're getting all of that. Can we see the parcel of land that they're exactly talking about? Well, no, they shouldn't be getting all of that property. That property has always been... Thank you, Helen. That property up the top was always meant to be left as green space, and as part of the original approval for council, we always agreed that 50% of this, which included some drainage, at least 50% of that would remain green space, and
Very
that has to flow through onto this development application.
Yep, Helen will be able to advise about the preliminary approval, which is over the land at the moment, and what we're expecting. The lease will be a portion of the lot, and it'll be subject to a survey and a lease area being agreed as part of the lease negotiations.
Thank you.
So any lease greater than a certain criteria requires a reconfiguring of a lot application to be made for the area of the lease to be determined. So that will be an application or part of the application that comes through with the development application as part of that. So it will be in its own lease area and in its own lot.
So can I just ask, sort of, what would be the anticipated size of that?
It would be the lease area.
So the lease area is probably from that roundabout at Pengelly Street down towards Phillip Street along Dave Burns Drive, and it shouldn't go any higher, even though that roundabout has a forward, like has Dave Burns Drive expanding. I can't foresee anything going up in that area, and if it was, it would just be very small parcels and probably on very high blocks of land. But it should just be the land from the roundabout down towards Phillip Street in there, yes.
And, sorry, and there's houses up the top of the... You wouldn't anticipate it would go right up the hill, would you? It's very steep up there.
It is very steep, yeah.
There's houses up there, and is there any way we can sort of condition it so we are considerate of those neighbours?
Absolutely. I would have thought we'd probably do that anyway.
That's what Helen does.
Yeah.
You're a good lady. Thank you. Sorry, and just one more question. Sorry, I feel like I'm monopolising here, and there's been some great questions. I'm just wondering, with the peppercorn lease too, was there any, I suppose, consideration or attempt to see if we could have recouped some money on that particular portion of land?
That wasn't part of the expression of interest, and as part of the strategic intent, the attraction of an operator to come in and construct this was the prime concern. The recommendation is an officer's recommendation at the moment. Should you want to condition to receive an economic return on the block, then that's for the council to decide.
Right, so are we thinking that it would not be viable if we were to charge for that land there?
Sorry, Councillor.
Are we considering that it wouldn't be viable for a developer to come in and develop it if we were to charge something for that land?
That's not been part of our considerations necessarily, that the expression of interest and the offer to the market was on the basis of a peppercorn lease to attract somebody who was able to come in and provide the capacity and housing that the region was missing. So we can go away and see if we can construct a commercial business case for this, but the idea was that we fulfilled the strategic vision for the Phillip Street precinct.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Goodluck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to note, Mark, it mentions that the lease can include development milestones to ensure that we get what we're looking for at times, and I know that'll be subject to negotiations with the lease agreement. But I just wanted to reflect a little bit, Mr. Mayor. I think one of the first items that I voted on when I was first elected to council was this Phillip Street Families and Communities Precinct project that I had very little knowledge about what it was at that time. And it was a visionary long-term project. And back then, 8 years ago, we were talking about this day, where now we have a Phillip Street Families and Communities project, and we were looking to attract some sort of aged care or retirement living over 50s, affordable housing, and here we are. We've got a proponent, we've got a lease, so this feels sort of a bit nostalgic for me personally. But this, I think it is a testament to both yourself, Mayor Matt, many other councillors, past and present, that have worked on this project, and lots of staff over a very, very long period of time. This project came back to council numerous times over the years. I even voted against it at one point.
I wasn't going to bring that up,
for various different
I'm very well aware.
things. Grant funding, there was the federal government, Ken O'Dowd at the time, the 20 million for the upgrade of Phillip Street, and the one lever that council had to pull was to try and get this sort of development here, which would complement the precinct for a peppercorn lease. And here we are today to see this happen. So this has been a very, very long time coming, and coincidentally we're now in a housing crisis which we weren't in 8 years ago. Well, we were in, but it was a very different type of housing crisis. But I think this is a fantastic project, and I'm happy. I'm not sure if yourself, Mr. Mayor, wants to move the officer's recommendation. I think there's been some very valid questions around conditions that need to be put in the lease, but I think that's something I'm comfortable that will happen, and I think this proponent will be able to deliver what we're trying to deliver for our community. So unless you're happy to move, Mr. Mayor, I'm certainly happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Goodluck. I'm more than happy to have you back on the record supporting this project, so I'm happy to accept you as the mover. I have other councillors with questions, but I'll take a seconder for the motion, please. Councillor McClintock, and then have Councillor Churchill with questions.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Mayor Matt. I suppose just to follow on from Councillor Goodluck and Councillor Holzheimer's questions appropriately, I've just got two questions and I suppose a comment to make. And Councillor Goodluck's already made reference, it's visionary, and I too would like to acknowledge those of the past, the councils of the past and the elected members and the officers that have been involved. Whether they were voting for or against, today is the defining moment for this council to make a firm decision. But just as a reminder also that this Family Street precinct was originally identified in what is well known as the SISP, the Social Infrastructure Strategic Plan, which goes back a ways. during the height of industrial development. So there's learning from that as whatever it might be when we move into the next iteration of growth and development for our region. It's about making a commitment to the social infrastructure strategic plan, which we are in the process now of developing that next vision. So it is a defining moment. I'd like to just follow on from Councillor Holzheimer's question, rightfully asking the question, when will it start appropriately, be it 18 to 24 months. It's a 99-year peppercorn lease. I'd like to ask the question, and it might sound a bit tongue-in-cheek, when will it be finished?
It says 2027.
No. So you're starting in 2027 and you're going to be completed in 2027. That's amazing.
No.
Okay, I'll ask the question again. When do you think...
Helen.
Well, so, and that, I'm pleased that you're at the table as well now, Helen. Thank you. Is that my question might have a tongue-in-cheek approach to it, but the reality of it is we're entering into a significant agreement on a significant strategic parcel of land, and I'm totally supportive of the recommendation overwhelmingly. But we don't want to enter into a position or a circumstance where we've got a land banking situation and we're still future councils in 98 years' time wondering when the last of those buildings or houses may be completed.
So just to be clear, as I say, Helen is the biggest variable in the process in terms of the time to...
From a council point of view.
From a council point of view.
I got you.
I'm ever so pleased to hear that.
So the quality of the application that we receive will be key to how long it will take us to assess. As we've talked about before, there's a preliminary approval over this land already. We've spoken to them and there's been pre-lodgement discussions with the proponent as well. The 18 to 24 months is their construction timeline.
I was well aware of that until someone indicated that 2027, that shocked me a little bit, that they could build 230 in that period of time.
That's the estimated
That's
date
our
of
starting time.
2027 is their estimated commencement date of operations on the basis that a development approval is received by the end of this calendar year.
Okay. So I speak with a level of experience and or wisdom is ensuring that the agreement is watertight on the basis of delivery of the entire project and not ending up in a situation where future councils may have to deal with the non-delivery. But I'm quite satisfied with that. It's in good hands, and ensuring that we don't end up in a land banking situation with part of the project completed and the rest of it, because market will drive it. Market will drive it.
Just to reassure you, Councillor, the intention is that the lease is conditioned for them to begin operations. Should they not, then we would expect that the land to return to council. It is a lease for that purpose, so that we can protect the community from speculators and land banking. That's why we're proposing a lease. Yep. So if it doesn't start operating within a specified amount of time, we would expect the lease to then default back to council and the community.
Thank you for that, Mark. Thank you, Helen. I'm quite satisfied with that. My second question, appropriately, and I speak with experience here in wisdom, whilst there is a focus on the over 55s market, and I've made this quite clear in previous discussions, 50, and I'll get my terminology right, there's 50 two-storey and 180 three-storey. Over 55s turn into 60, turn into 65, turn into 70. Just wanting to ensure that whatever the conditions may be, that it's accessible for, or can I put it in another terminology, that it's inclusive of those people, whether it's disability and or inclusive enough to be able to accommodate the needs of the market.
Three-storey doesn't necessarily mean you have all 3 stories. There could be individual units on each story.
That's fine. I'm hearing what you're saying. Yeah,
I would hope so.
It's just an
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't want 3 stories to climb up.
Well, I mean, for those who are not close enough to it, they would read that in the agenda item and the market themselves, that there are 50 two-storey buildings and there's 180 three-storey buildings, if we take the terminology from the agenda. So I'd just like to get that understanding that we will take a fully inclusive approach to ensure that we can accommodate the broader aspect of the market and not limit it to those who can run up and down 3 flights of steps.
Absolutely. A few more questions, Councillor
Thank you.
McClintock, Councillor Goodluck again, and Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. I guess just to provide a little bit of comfort to the room, a lot of us are reasonably new to this concept, and as Councillor Goodluck alluded to, it's been going on for some time. Can you just provide a really short snapshot of the history of how we got to here? Obviously, it's not that we put it out to market and we had 1,000 people all wanting to be building on this place, and so the idea of not engaging in a peppercorn lease is perhaps not that we have a huge market all demanding this space here. Is there history to, we've tried to do this before, and I know there kind of is, I've got little bits and pieces, but can you just give us a quick snapshot of how we journeyed to here from concept to now?
Mayor,
Yeah, I'd love to.
you to
Please.
provide the...
So we have put this out to expressions of interest before, and we got nobody.
Yep.
Not one person, not one company was interested. So then we went out.
That was on a peppercorn lease
Yeah.
basis?
Yeah, yes.
Not commercial, so...
Well, yeah, because we want to be able to determine what goes there. We don't want it to be, we didn't want it to be general housing. That's for someone else to do. This block of land was strategically meant for retirees, potentially, yeah, affordable housing, those sorts of things. And you can't guarantee that when you sell it to a developer, who will then put an application into Helen to go more than the 50% of the land space area and develop it to the maximum they do, because that's what developers try and do, and that's fair enough, that's what they do. So we went out, we got nobody, then we went and signed an agreement with an MOU with the Central Committee on the Ageing to try and help them, because they're very well versed in delivering affordable housing, particularly for pensioners in the Gladstone region. You just have a look at the fantastic facility in Heritage Village in Talina, and I would love personally to have seen that progress. But the application you got in front of you today and our meeting with them yesterday, they're more than happy to see another provider move into town, and more than happy to see that their wait list of over 100 people at the moment will potentially be able to move into this facility when it's constructed. So it's been a long time coming. We have tried many times, and the only way to get the mix of housing development we would like to see in there, which is what our community has asked for back at the Social Infrastructure Strategic Plan, which was this identified as the #1 project and soon to be the last delivered project on that list, but ticked off a few boxes along the way, which is pretty good. It's finally where it needs to be, and I'm the biggest supporter of the Central Committee on the Ageing, and I personally would have loved to have seen it go to them, but this is a new organisation that will deliver great outcomes for Gladstone. I'm happy to support the recommendation when it comes along. I do have some questions for Mark about exactly what's been mentioned by a few people to make sure it starts. I have emailed everyone the proposed timeline, which includes some this year, some things, construction starting in 2025 and operations in 2027. Now, if they can stick to that, I don't need any additional amendments to the motion that's already moved and seconded, but I want reassurance when it gets to my turn to ask some questions. I hope that answers.
If I can just add to that though, Mr Mayor, if you go back even further, and it was before my time, but I understand that there was an attempt by the council prior to 2016 to get proponents interested in developing this site, and one of the biggest barriers to that was the $20 million upgrade that was required to Phillip Street. There was a lot of advocacy by the council at that time, and working with the federal government, the Salvation Army. Ken O'Dowd got the $20 million which upgraded Phillip Street, because any housing development like this would have triggered a $20 million upgrade to that main road, which totally blew the viability of any housing development on this land. So this is a huge timeline of events that has led to this being even possible. And that was before my time. You might be able to clarify that.
Ken,
more.
and actually it goes back further. It was actually Chris Trevor, who was the federal member for Flynn at the time, who made the announcement on Phillip Street for the duplication of that. And fortunately, Ken O'Dowd, when he was elected, continued that commitment, and it actually committed the funding. So it was a lot of advocacy. Every time an application came in to build the precinct, council would trigger the upgrade of the main road. And it was a bit rich, I'll say, for the Queensland government and the federal government to suggest that we should upgrade a main road while we're building a precinct that's providing services that they should otherwise be providing. So it's not only do our ratepayers have to provide the facilities and the services, we triggered the upgrade of their road. And so the only way to allow this project to happen was to get federal government assistance, which we did get, and allowed that duplication of that road, which is really the trigger. As you said, Khan, I'd forgotten about that, but there was a lot of advocacy that took place over the time. And Chris Trevor was a federal member at the time. I remember standing there with him, and I'm not sure if anyone else was here at the time, but when he announced that funding, and then Ken O'Dowd recommitted it and actually put the money in the budget. I think it was $20 million or something, which is a big chunk of money, but it was great to see that allowed the precinct to happen, or will allow this development to happen too.
Brilliant. No, I thank you for that. I know there's a lot more than just a single application that we've put out there, and suddenly we're looking at a thing. I just wanted a better picture of how that came about, so thank you.
Yeah, years of advocacy, years, and over different levels of government, over different types of government. I've got, Khan, you're next, and then Councillor Patrick, and then Councillor Muscat.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, you know, we have the development milestones that we'll negotiate and put into the lease. That's why we're doing a lease option. It gives us the ability to have a certain amount of control over this development and the process and how it takes. I'm quite comfortable that Mark and the team are not going to put 96-year development milestones in the lease, Councillor Churchill. I'd be surprised if that was the case, Mark. But no, but I do also think we need to be realistic around. There's a development application process to go through, the construction time in a you know, highly competitive construction market, if you will, with lots of projects, lots of things happening. We've got to be realistic around the time that it might take to actually build 230 houses. But I'm sure that will play out. I'm comfortable with having those development milestones that can be negotiated with this proponent. And I will also say this is a proponent with a demonstrated track record of delivering these types of facilities. So we should also be somewhat certainly guided by our intentions for the site and our eagerness to get this up and running, but also be somewhat guided by their expertise in what sort of housing, what sort of development is actually appealing to the market, because the chances are they probably know the market better than we do, or at least as well.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor Matt. My question has been stolen by Councillor McClintock. But I just really wanted to also ensure that we gave our residents that comfort on and sort of did that snapshot about the journey leading up to today and how important today's decision is. And it's such a significant milestone.
Definitely is. Councillor Muscat.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I wanted to support some of the statements that we made about the history. I don't necessarily agree with the whole thing, as in the way in which I was also not necessarily always positive about some movements. But definitely this one is something I 100% support. And in a way, this kind of demonstrates what it is that council can and can't do. So we are able to enable things that we believe are needed in our community, and we don't, I guess, we attract partners and people to support that vision. We're not going to go and build houses. What we're doing is what we can. We have certain assets in our portfolio, well, in our region and the council, and putting that expression of interest and I guess moving from, or clarifying more what it is that we need right now, which might not always been what we needed before, but having that flexibility around the mixed housing, over 55s, it's not necessarily, retirement. It's also women over 55 that don't have the resources to move into bigger houses. It helps ease the housing pressure that we're having at the moment. So this feels like a really positive result and it really shows what role councils can play in some of these issues without having to, again, I agree with Councillor Goodluck, we have to be guided by those ones that are in that sector, because we're not in the housing sector. We're not developers either. So bringing the right people to those places, because we believe we need it and this community needs it. So I will be very happy to put my hand up and say yes, thank you.
And if I can just clarify before we go to the motion, Mr Mayor, I think I voted for the project at least 3 or 4 times.
You did?
I might have voted against it once, so today will be 5, so that's like an 80% support track record, all right? I'll just put that on the record.
Yeah, there is with the Phillip Street precinct is, it could also be, I know where the mayor's vision come from, definitely, but this is to me a housing project that could also, obviously it's been enabled by a number of infrastructure steps, and yeah, I actually think I also voted for it once, but I was just elected at the time.
Yes.
And it was, yeah.
Interesting.
Thank
I'd
you.
like on the record that Councillor Churchill and I have voted for this in favour every time. Thank you, Councillor.
It's not a compliment.
No, but you wanted to highlight your 80%.
I think I'm at 100% as well.
Yeah, you're about to be. Now,
I think we have shaped it together
I think so.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we got there. There has been no item that we have voted on more times than this precinct in the history of the time I've been in council. Not one has even come close. And a couple of times it got through on a casting vote. Anyway, it's alive and it's well today. Now, my question has been asked a couple of times. Councillor Goodluck has given me some, and so have you, Mark, some comfort that a lease allows my concerns to be allayed, but I think I'd like to know more about potential another clause around the construction of this. Now, I accept what's been said. They are they're good at their industry. They've got previous track record. But so have other people had previous track record and other things that they said they're going to do. And I don't want us to be all accepting and happy today that, yay, we've come to a milestone, and then in 3 years go, damn, I just wish they'd started that project.
That's the intent of my question, Mayor Matt.
And Councillor call you Wagner again, Holzheimer's and Patrick's as well, I think. So there's a bit of, I feel, support in the room to add an additional clause or something. I did flag an email earlier to management to see if there was something you could help me word. Otherwise, I'll make something up on the spot here. Do we have any suggested clauses?
We do.
Thank you.
So we can include a clause that the lease be subject to and conditional upon the lessee obtaining all necessary permits, approvals and authorities associated with the construction by a date to be chosen, commencing construction or completing construction.
Okay. I'm happy with commencement of construction because once they start building, they generally finish. I really can't see that. That's my eyes. Don't start with you. No one else can see that either.
No comment about age, Chair. Is there a concern there with the commencement that you could build a building and tick off the boxes, we're commenced, but one of 230 is commenced?
Yeah, good point.
Can I
Councillor
just
Goodluck?
put for consideration, Mr Mayor, to me, including development milestones in the lease is doing exactly that, but it's leaving it subject to the negotiations with the proponent. The risk you take if you pick a date here right now, which
I'm happy not
I'm
to pick
open
a date,
to come on that.
but I would like to see something in here that says that the lease be subject to conditional upon that and take the dates out and leave that up to the CEO to do. Our CEO has heard loud and clear in the room.
And I'm happy to support that, but to me that's what we already had. But if
Well,
you
I don't know
want it,
that
if you want it mentioned
I want it
there,
mentioned and I want it highlighted to this company, which I am sure have track record and I'm sure will deliver. But I also don't want to be sitting here in 3 years' time going, if only we put those clauses in, and now we have a very big strategic property that's landlocked.
The risk is, Mr Mayor, and I'd love to see this happen as soon as possible, and I'm sure everyone would, if I can just say, there may be a case that the proponent will go to tender for a construction of this size facility and companies can't get there to start it by a date that we might pick. That might not be through any fault of this proponent, or so there might be market factors or other factors that we haven't got oversight of here today if we pick a date that could jeopardise that, and that's where I think the negotiations will be the time to determine those dates.
And to ensure those negotiations take place, point C says that the lease be subject to timeframes to ensure that the construction and operation of the site is achieved in a timely manner and without putting times and dates in today.
As the mover of the motion, I'm happy to accept that, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
I'd love to do it that way, but I have no tenure to tell me. I think I have to accept amendment. That's right. I'll come to that in a second. Is there any further questions or comments on this, Councillor Churchill?
No, I'm
Excellent.
quite satisfied with that, thank you.
Yes, Mark.
Just to provide reassurance on other matters that have been raised with the timeline, I confirm with Helen that the actual development approval, that decision will come back to the boardroom. So the nature of the development, what it's for, how it's going to be staged, the impact on neighbouring properties will all come back to the boardroom for you.
Even better.
Yeah, look, I'm very supportive of that. That was based on my question. It might have been tongue-in-cheek to start with. When does the project get finished? The reality of it is history will show, and I'm not doubting the expertise of the company, but we understand what the construction industry is like out there at the moment, be it for some. And if there is associated supportive funding that's got to come from the other two tiers of government, so there's a few what-ifs that sit in amongst it. So I'd be quite satisfied, perhaps, to accept that if you're going to go through the amendment debate. Well, I'm happy to move that as an amendment if it helps you.
It helps.
And then, but I'm also mindful that Councillor Goodluck was also extremely receptive to allow that to go into his original motion. But for good governance, I'll move the amendment. But I just want to make this particular comment, is that we want to leave a positive legacy for the next and the future councils and the community, not something that we would have to be considering as an alternative if something was to go, unfortunately, pear-shaped, which we hope and pray that that's not going to happen. But this is just good business diligence, that's all.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder for the amendment, please? Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Any further questions, discussion on the amendment? I'm going to put the amendment. All in favour? The amendment is now the motion. I need a mover and seconder. I'm going to take the original movers and seconders.
Thank you.
Which is Councillor Goodluck and Councillor McClintock. That is now the motion. Everyone knows where we're at? The motion on the screen, the amendment is now the motion. I'm going to put that. All in favour? And I'm going to call a division, please. All in favour? Let the record show Councillor Goodluck, Councillor Davis, Councillor Holzheimer, Councillor Muscat, Councillor Churchill, Councillor Wagner, Councillor Patrick and myself vote in favour of the motion. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Helen. G 4.2, Regional Arts Development Fund, Round 1, and I hand over the General Manager of Community and Lifestyle, Kylie Lee.
Mr
Welcome,
Mayor,
Kylie.
if I may, an oversight on my behalf. I've just got a
potential
a
conflict.
declarable conflict, sorry.
Yeah.
But it's just occurred to me that with, item number G/4.2, Regional Arts Development Fund, Round 1, 23-24, the application from the Ocean Breeze Gallery for the 10-year anniversary, the Boyne-Tanham Arts Business Community Association actually provided a letter of support for that particular application, which was signed by our Vice President. I'm the President of the BTABC. It's just occurred to me that I knew about that. So I'll declare that conflict and I'll leave the room.
You're going to leave the room. Okay. Fair enough.
I think that'll be easier. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Okay. Regional Arts Development, Round 1. Thank you, Kylie. Welcome, Felicity.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I have Felicity Barker here with us today. She's our Manager of Arts and Entertainment Acting, to discuss the Regional Arts Development Fund, Round 1 for 2023-24. During Round 1, we received 14 applications, requesting a total of 119,237. Our RADF advisory group have assessed the applications and have recommended 11 applications for funding for a total of $72,101. 3 applications have been recommended for further mentoring and be submitted in a future round. Should councillors accept this recommendation from the committee, the closing financial position for round 1 will be $95,403. I'd also like to acknowledge our new chair of RADF, Councillor Melissa Holzheimer, and invite any questions councillors may have.
Thank you, Kylie. I believe Councillor Churchill would have still been the chair at this point in time. Is that correct for this round?
No,
No?
correct.
Oh, so you were the chair for this?
Councillor Holzheimer can take the accolades.
I wasn't able to be present because there was a
Changeover.
time difference.
No worries. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, questions to the General Manager, and I have one straight away. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for putting the report together. I think I had a look at the guidelines for the RADF, and there's just a couple here that I just wanted a bit of clarification on, if that's all right. So in the guideline, it actually says that projects aren't eligible if they provide majority of funding for publishing and printing costs, and I see there is one there from a newspaper, and I'm just wondering, are they doing something different that isn't publishing or printing?
Is that the Gladstone News one?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. I read that. It said something about electronic as well, but I'm not sure, Kylie. Can you
Still
help?
printing.
Sorry, thank you for your question. That was promoting the relevant artists in our region, so I
Through
it
an
is
advertorial,
advertising.
I'm assuming. Would that not be publishing or printing? If it's an advertorial, a money-making publication?
Most of the budget breakdown was in reference to actually curating the advertisements that would go into Gladstone News, so there was an in-kind component from them to deliver that project.
It's $9,000 though for... look, I'm just flagging that if we're going to start funding advertising features, which is what it is,
Yeah.
then are we opening ourselves up to a proliferation of these publications doing the same? And especially if we're spending that sort of money, and I'm sure everyone's done their due
Yeah.
diligence and what have you, but I just feel as though that one there needs a little bit of consideration. All the guidelines need to be changed.
The assessors that assess the applications, they had actually discussed, how comfortable they are with curating work for your own business and applying for a grant in relation to that. And one of the feedback items from the initial assessment was to go back to Gladstone News, because they had mentioned in the application that they had actually had artists reach out for the profiles, so that they had to provide evidence that that was actually not curated by them. It was something that the community had asked for.
It would have been nice for the publication to see that they were worth profiling as a story, I'm thinking, but
Yeah.
I just feel it is. I mean, I did work in advertising
Yeah.
features, so I am concerned. I'm just raising that
Sure.
for maybe consideration for guidelines in the future if you want to go down that way and start doing advertising.
We are actually updating the guidelines before the AGM. They have been pitched to the committee, so I can definitely put that forward.
No
And
worries, thanks. And the other one there was another one where it says that projects that aren't eligible, they include entertainment for events without a specific developmental outcome for artists. And I'm just wondering about the Ocean Breeze one, which I wasn't, the Ocean Breeze one is actually to fund a 10-year anniversary.
yes, so there's also an exhibition component in that, and local business support. So it was quite detailed in the application itself that there would be other opportunities within that event, not just the celebration itself.
Again, I just note that it's quite clear that it says it's not for events.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose is about building local cultural capacity.
Yeah.
Cultural innovation, community wellbeing, and I can see that there is a component.
Yeah.
But perhaps that component should be funded and not
the other part.
Yeah, just raising it. But
Sure.
look, thank you. Look, the report's great, comprehensive, and I do commend you too on taking the initiative to work with these other ones, because they look like potentially really good
Yes, agreed.
projects, and there are some, very good ones there. I will note too that there's one where we're funding something to go in schools. I'm comfortable with it, But that's a lot of money to be doing 11 workshops in schools, which were probably done previously, I suppose, funded directly through the Arts Council, and perhaps that's why it's just come through RADF, because they are very good for the schools. But I'm, I suppose, more comfortable with that, because I do think that one does build the local cultural capacity and capability. But thank you.
Thank you.
I got Councillor Davis and Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to clarify the one for Gladstone News. Is that just a one-off feature? Do you know?
It goes over,
It's 6. Sorry, yeah, it's 6 editorials.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
it is quite a...
Yes.
And I think Councillor Wagner just touched on my other question. So the other ones, you will be working with them and mentoring them to... Okay, thank you.
That's one of the, I think, one of the best parts of our RADF committee and the membership, and their ability to mentor people to grow their applications. I think it's great.
Councillor Muscat.
Thank you. I have very similar questions to Councillor Wagner when it comes to, for example, we're pretty much going to pay advertising for a number of artists. So, which is not even the artist applying, it's the actual organisation that is going to benefit financially. So I don't understand how this grant can do that. So, and I have said this before, I am very, very uneasy. I have no information in general about how we assess these applications. I don't understand the criteria, what the answers are. So what I'm doing here is just taking a recommendation. I have no information to, I just feel, sorry, I just feel like I'm just pen pushing. So, and I feel really uneasy, and I have felt like this for many years now when this comes to my desk, because to me, the RADF, it's about, as we said, building that cultural capacity and building artists. There's a number of things here that I don't know whether artists are, I mean, we're paying someone else, we're not paying artists, and I always found that that's what RADF did well, which was support artists through their artistic practice. And I don't know, I think I'm probably not going to support it, just not necessarily because of the individual applications, but I just got to a point where I don't have the confidence that I'm making a decision that I can stand by.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Muscat. I'm a bit the same. I'm not comfortable supporting without, and it is about the information. The information we have there isn't real. I can tell with the Gladstone News ones that it's an advertising feature, and yes, there will be 6 editions. I'm assuming they will highlight one artist every publication for $18,000 and $9,000 our contribution. And the Ocean Breeze one, it would have been good to see how that is broken down. Like, if we could see it, then we'd be a little bit more comfortable. But I'm looking at your own guidelines, and I'm thinking this is like one recently where I'd like to, I suppose, move a motion that we go ahead with the others, but we need to be able to see that too. Like, if you want us to comply with guidelines, then we probably need that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we don't have the applications in front of us.
Yeah. With the printing for that one, so the budget breakdown, you can see the in-kind and the expenditure. So the total value of the project was $18,400, and the total expenditure, which is what they've actually applied for, was $9,200, I believe. So they haven't actually included portions of that in the project itself. So part of this is paying for wages, website development, administration, which comes under our Get Social, partnering to plan. And then part of it obviously is printing, which, you know, it looks to be an in-kind. So we did have a lot of questions to go back to this one with, just for your reassurance that, you know, we're not, you know, just letting people curate their own work and then apply for funding to pay for it. So that was definitely in question by the assessors. But it was kind of, you know, fleshed out that there's a major in-kind component to this, and it was something that local artists had actually approached them for, so they had to provide evidence of that.
I just think though, and I get, like,
Yeah,
and I understand you've done it, but the in-kind is already costs that are being absorbed because they're already paying those staff, they've got the websites publishing. So it's one of those ones where I feel it's a little bit of a stretch. And I'm just wondering too, like, if they are doing the donation, I'm not seeing them like hanging up works or something, or working with the library to do it, or there's other opportunities to do that. And when I look at the circulation of the particular publication, it's one not right across our whole region. It's very specific. If you're looking at the demographic that sees it, it's a lot of our older people, which is great, and I'm sure that they want to have a look at our art and culture. But it's just not, I don't know, it's not sitting well.
Sure.
If I can just add something for consideration, I think one of the biggest things that we hear from local artists is the lack of awareness of what they do, and I think this particular project gives a spotlight on artists. A lot of artists can't afford advertising costs, so this isn't really funding Elevate to do, funding Gladstone News to do something. It's building an awareness of our local artists and through a wider distribution. So I think that's just a point for consideration.
Yeah. I'll come to you, Councillor Patrick. I've got a different perspective on this. I hear the concerns raised by Councillor Wagner and Councillor Muscat. Personally, I'm confident in the committee's recommendations. I get some of them might be a stretch, but I didn't assess them. We appointed a committee to assess them, and I'm comfortable with the committee's recommendations. But that's why they come here, so that if you're all not comfortable as a board, then we can make some changes. And I'm happy to accept recommendations, and we can put those motions forward. Personally, I'm comfortable with the officer's recommendation, and I do hear the concerns councillors have, and they're valid concerns. And maybe this time, because we're in a transition phase from chair to chair, we didn't have a councillor on the committee that we could refer back to now, but I'm confident in what you've told me, Felicity and Kylie, that these have been assessed appropriately, and I'm comfortable with them. But there's some other questions. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from Councillor Muscat and Councillor Wagner. I just feel, how do we know how Gladstone News is actually sourcing the local artists even? We just don't have any information on how that is even being assessed. So, yeah.
Or a pending part of their final approval is that they submit some sort of reference to how and what they'll be selecting. That's definitely something I'm sure they'd be willing to work on if that makes you more comfortable.
Sure. Thank you.
Sorry, if I can just add, there is intention of aligning the RADF process with our community investment program process. So that is work that will happen. So you will have more exposure to the applications and to the assessment matrix. So there is work that will be undertaken to increase the transparency there.
Okay, any further questions, councillors? Councillor Churchill, and then I might see if there's a move.
No, I'm quite satisfied with the advisory committee's recommendations at this stage. There is a history in the past of these type of projects. I know it's not explicit to this particular proponent, but when we're talking about media, when we're talking about, and could be podcasts, it's a whole range of various areas of media promotion for our industries. So I understand it might be explicit to one print media at this particular stage, but we've had other examples in the past that we've funded to encourage or publicly promote the arts the performing arts, the cultures in industry. And I know it's very difficult to compare apples with apples, and I understand where Councillor Wagner is coming from, because it's about the advertising, it's about the cost of the printing, or whatever the case might be. But that's only that if we, and again, I don't have the application in front of me, so I'm going to follow Councillor Holzheimer's lead on this at this particular stage as the new chair. But I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Let's get into a debate if you want to, or an amendment.
Well, I'd like to take that, but to be fair, Councillor Wagner already foreshadowed that she was moving a motion, and I would be happy to support yours, but I think to be fair, it was raised first, and I'll come back to Councillor Wagner. Councillor Muscat had a question.
I just, again, I will say the same thing as before. I'm uncomfortable with all of the applications and the way in which this process is done. But I definitely see that maybe there is a possibility to go back and ask, you know, what sort of artist, because to be honest, I always seen this grant opportunity for artists to apply, or organisations that will work with artists in doing, in practicing their art. So what we are paying, I mean, there will be the same thing, for example, if they want to feature businesses or feature, I don't know, like or candidates for election, for example. I just happen to remember how much it cost me. So when we have to, you know, that I just don't, if it was an artist applying to be featured in media, I will have a different view maybe, but this is pretty much someone asking to be paid for the work, or pay for someone else to, you know, I guess we are paying on their behalf. So I'm happy to see some sort of maybe go back to ask for a bit more information and supporting from some of the artists, because I also wonder, we have artists sitting in this panel, so how isn't it a little uncomfortable also that it is likely that they might go back and tell the same artists that sit in our panel whether they want to be featured or not, and which I also find that it might not be appropriate in a way when they're also approving the same thing.
In their application, they have mentioned that they will go out and do a call out for artists for the Artist Features Spotlight. They said if they received a overwhelming number of responses, they would look at implementing this as a more permanent spot. They haven't said they'll apply for funding, so that little bit is a bit grey, but they do have you know, intentions of continuing it if they get an overwhelming response.
It is really hard. I know it will be really hard for you to answer all these questions, which normally we will just be able to look up the answer in our papers, but we can't. That's why I'm very uncomfortable, and I have always been.
Councillor Wagner, you foreshadowed that you might like to move a motion.
No, look, I'm comfortable if, can we put something there that the officers be asked to seek out more information if they're comfortable to proceed. That's with Ocean Breeze as well, because to me that just looks like, while it's a great event, it also looks like just a marketing opportunity for a specific, it looks like a business. Now, in the guidelines it does say businesses are eligible, but yes, as long as it's undertaken at some point in the future that be reviewed, because if you want to be going this, then they need to change the guidelines.
Well, can I suggest a recommendation for you? Then I'll come to you, Councillor Holzheimer. Is that we approve the balance of the officer's recommendation and seek further information on Ocean Breeze and the Gladstone News applications. Was that be what you're looking for?
Yeah, and I'm happy to give them the authority to progress if they're
Okay.
So,
I'm going to need that on the screen, please. So when you say you're happy for, so they seek more information, or do you want it brought back to the boardroom for a decision?
no, I don't bring it back.
Okay.
Just, yeah,
Okay, we might need to see something on the screen. Can we?
Could I? It's up there at the moment. Could I perhaps? Sorry, I had a train of thought. Now I've lost it. Is it clarifying you're wanting further information sought to ensure compliance with the guidelines? Is that specifically what you're seeking? Would that be just clear so we know what we're to ensure compliance with the guidelines prior to approving funding? Does that sound okay? So what I'm understanding is you don't want to brought back here for a decision. You want us to confirm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can we change complying to compliance? Seek different information from Gladstone News Ocean Breeze applications. Okay, can I see the rest of the recommendations? The same as carried, wasn't it? Oh, you have. Well done. Good you. On the ball. Okay, that's moved by Councillor Wagner. Can I get a seconder before we discuss it any further, please? Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Then you had a question.
My question, I think, was about, because it seems like there's the lack of information for us to make the decision, an informed decision here today. And Kylie talked about us actually changing that process a little bit to align. When can we see that? Will we see that in the next round, so that when we're making these decisions in future, we can actually have the evidence we need to make the decisions, even if it's in the attached documents, so that we can go back and refer to them as well?
As Chair, you'll get them all.
Oh, I know. And I did go over them briefly with the ladies when I got a little bit of a handover, because there was I think I was voted in one Tuesday, and then they had planned to meet and it didn't lap. So we both weren't able to be present. So that was a bit, problematic this time. So, So when can we expect that change will happen?
Councillor Holzheimer, can I take that on notice, please? It's a little more complicated than just giving you a date. There's a lot of work in the background that happens with that, and a lot of education for our assessment committee.
Councillor McClintock.
Yeah, I think just to add, I guess, a little bit of strength or agreement to some of the things that have been said around the table, it would make it a lot easier to make these decisions if we had a little bit more clarity as to what we're actually deciding on. Perhaps it's just a little bit too generic to make a decision on here, even if it's in form of an attachment or something like that I could read some context to some of these decisions would help. And I think probably, I don't necessarily disagree either with Councillor Muscat that I guess my idea of what this funding or this idea is to support artists and making sure that this is not my committee, but that we are supporting artists and we're making sure that those guidelines do continue to support the artists. It's like in many regards, I kind of can hear a little bit of, I'll invite you to play at my wedding and I'll give you exposure, but I won't pay for your dinner. And so artists are notorious for being given exposure, but no money. And we want to make sure that this funding is actually supporting artists, not just giving them exposure, because that doesn't pay for the bills at the end of the week, if that makes sense. So yeah, just to, I guess, add a little bit of strength to that comment.
All good? Oh, you're allowed to? Okay, any further discussion or debate on this one? Okay, so I moved in Councillor Wagner, seconding Councillor Holzheimer for the recommendation on the screen that we approve the ones in the top section, removing Ocean Breeze and Gladstone News, and then seek additional information in relation to the Gladstone News and Ocean Breeze applications to ensure compliance with the guidelines prior to approval for funding as listed below. Any further discussion?
Did you want
Mark?
that to come back to here?
No, that's...
Or authorise the CEO to outwork that?
Do we need to add that in?
I suggest we probably do.
Okay, well, we'll put that in then, as listed below, and authorise the CEO to... Do I need to do that, Lisa? Yeah. Delegate authority to the CEO, maybe.
Is it delegated?
Prior to approval by the CEO. How's that? That makes some sense. Yeah. I don't think we need to delegate. That says it, doesn't it? Comfortable with that, Michelle? Thank you. All right, no further questions or comments? Thank you. We'll put the motion. All in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah? No? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, nice one. Well, no, you're right. Let's wait, because there's still Phillip Street Advisory Committee, and then there's council reports and other things. I'll wait for the Councillor Goodluck to come back in the room. Just waiting for our CEO and our staff to come back in the room before we continue. No, Darren? Oh, okay. Sorry, for those watching online, before we break for morning tea, I'd like to highlight 3 awards that council staff have received in recent times, and I'll start with, and I believe they're watching online, which is kind of appropriate, is our Industrial Ecosystem video, which was the winner of the LGAQ LGX Best Video Award. I might get Lisa to be Delaney and show off our award. So that's that award. That was for an internally produced, so we're produced locally by our staff here at Gladstone Regional Council, particularly I shouldn't mention one in particular, but they've done a fantastic job, which is translating our ecosystem, industrial ecosystem, so everyone could easily understand it. So if you haven't watched it, please do. It was also translated into 4 languages and used across the world. We'll acknowledge Gary Scanlon for his efforts putting this together, but in terms of the digital production, I think Darren and your team, Kylie, and probably you can add to whoever I've forgotten, but I know there's a lot involved, and I see Matt Harris is in the audience as well, and probably Tim, no doubt, have done a fantastic video there, which anyone who watches it can really understand what our industrial ecosystem is all about. Being able to cram that in to 5 minutes is something we present in boardrooms around the world in half an hour and 45 minutes, and then we get questions for another half an hour or so about how we want to see our industrial ecosystem grow over the number of years, and to win that award is well done to your team, Kylie. There's a couple of others I'd like to mention. Is our workplace wellbeing culture journey. Another one here, which is where we've seen quantitative improvements in important things like capital works delivery, turnover and absenteeism, but I really like seeing and hearing and feeling the move to a constructive approach in our workplace. And there's our team there. I'll give you some stats. And Darren's arrived. Darren has arrived. Well done, Darren. We just gave you a great shout out. Now we've moved on to the next award because you're a little bit late. But that's okay. Don't you go anywhere. Yes. Some of the stats in our culture journey include 47% increase in capital works delivery from 2021 to 2023. 36% boost in operational plan initiative delivery. Absenteeism has dropped by 13% and turnover by 2%. Proudly GRC videos have been created, our cultural champions network, the thank you cards. There's so many more key achievements in that, and I think there were some other things I wanted to mention as well about that. The work involved improving workplace culture is never truly done, but I'm so pleased that we are making a difference in our employees' lives and allowing them to bring their whole selves to work. So well done to your team. And we do have one more award. That's, it's the awards season for Gladstone Regional Council. And this is for our First Nations Fire Officer, a position I'm very excited to be creating here at Gladstone Regional Council. So as part of our Reconciliation Action Plan, our commitment to building stronger relationships with First Nations people, we were a successful applicant in the federal government's Black Summer Bushfires grants program to support continued recovery from 2019 to 2020 bushfires. The grant supported our First Nations fire officer to facilitate the delivery of cultural burns and land management on council reserves. In May 2022, Gladstone Regional Council opened applications and created our new First Nations fire officer role. Congratulations, Michael Wilmot, who commenced in this role in August in 2022. Proud Waka Waka man came to council with an extensive experience from both federal and state national park management as a ranger. And there's a lot more I'll say about Michael, but I just want to talk more about the roles in the position. So since then, council has budgeted to extend this role beyond March 2024 funding in period. And we will also soon, we've actually advertised now, we will be expanding the program to include a First Nations fire and land management trainees as part of our 2025 intake. So we're going to have, I think it's 2 positions, which is fantastic to support you have a team. We're the only council in Queensland with a dedicated First Nations fire officer, and over the past year this approach has led to the successful completion of 12 burns across 200 hectares of land. That's fantastic. Well done to you and your team. Yes, we certainly can. Where's our comms team? Come on up. And I forgot Ashley before. There's Ash. Come on, Matt Harris. And Darren started at council in the entertainment centre, and here he is producing award-winning videos now. So let's give them a round of applause too. Well done, team. We do have a few more items on the agenda, but we're going to celebrate our team and break for morning tea. Thank you.
I've lived in Gladstone for almost 3 years now, and I really love the scenery and beautiful beaches that we have. I enjoy being active in the community. I play rugby league for the Gladstone Women's Wallabies team as well, so I enjoy getting out there, making friends. Yeah, it's a pretty good team. We're better this year though, so that's good. So I'm also on the committee for the Youth Council. It's a really rewarding experience. I would definitely recommend it to our upcoming future youth as well, to encourage them to speak about issues that impact society and their thoughts and feelings. Issues such as mental health, bullying, environmental issues as well. I think that they're pretty big issues. Being a part of the Youth Council provides me with the platform and resources to enforce better change for our youth and our community. It makes me proud to put on my uniform every morning, every time that I get up out of bed, get ready, and it just makes me really happy to be part of a big organisation that's trying to be there for the community. I was really excited when I got the phone call. I was like jumping up and down. Oh, Mum, got the job! Yeah, she was really excited. She was really happy for me, so it was a proud parenting moment for them as well, for my parents. And yeah, I just felt really overwhelmed and really grateful that I was given the opportunity to kickstart my career with council. So I'm grateful to be here. My name is Stefani and I currently work for GRC as a business administration trainee for the Biosecurity and Environmental Health Department.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
I've lived in Gladstone for almost 3 years now, and I really love the scenery and beautiful beaches that we have. I enjoy being active in the community. I play rugby league for the Gladstone Women's Wallabies team as well, so I enjoy getting out there, making friends. Yeah, it's a pretty good team. We're better this year though, so that's good. So I'm also on the committee for the Youth Council. It's a really rewarding experience. I would definitely recommend it to our upcoming future youth as well, to encourage them to speak about issues that impact society and their thoughts and feelings. Issues such as mental health, bullying, environmental issues as well. I think that they're pretty big issues. Being a part of the Youth Council provides me with the platform and resources to enforce better change for our youth and our community. It makes me proud to put on my uniform every morning, every time that I get up out of bed, get ready, and it just makes me really happy to be part of a big organisation that's trying to be there for the community. I was really excited when I got the phone call. I was like jumping up and down, oh Mum, got the job! Yeah, she was really excited, she was really happy for me, so it was a proud parenting moment for them as well, for my parents, and yeah, I just felt really overwhelmed and really grateful that I was given the opportunity to kickstart my career with council, so I'm grateful to be here. My name is Stefani and I currently work for GIC as a business administration trainee for the Biosecurity and Environmental Health Department.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Thank you, councillors, and thank you everyone watching online. We will move back into the agenda. The next item is G4.3, which is the Phillip Street Precinct Advisory Committee review of terms of reference and appointment of committee members. Back to you, Kylie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have Jacqueline Iwazaka with me today. She's our Community Development Specialist and also the Secretariat for our Phillip Street Community Advisory Committee. So thank you. We undertook a expression of interest process in March and received 10 applications to the committee, which is a world record for our committee. 3 returning members have applied, along with 7 new applications. Following the interviews, the panel have recommended to expand the membership to allow for succession planning and diversity of input from the group. The recommended membership is as follows: Auntie Cecilia Egmeles as the First Nations representative, she's a returning member. Maxine Bruce, representing the senior community, returning member also. And Kate Dufty, representing the Access and Inclusion community. Carmen Jen is a new committee member, proposed committee member, representing the disability community. Charmaine Bennett and Anitha Christopher, representing the culturally and linguistically diverse membership, and Desley O'Grady in a new role that we are proposing, which is the general community, so not youth, not senior, but general community. We are yet to recruit a youth representative to our committee, but we will be seeking that out during normal business as usual. The volunteer members hold the responsibility of capturing the community voice in our operating model to ensure that the programs and services that are delivered from the precinct are still serving the community's needs. In addition to our volunteer membership, we also have 2 councillor representatives, Councillor Leanne Patrick and Councillor Melissa Holzheimer, and myself. 3 other people will also be representing on the committee, which are our primary tenants, the Salvation Army, GAPDL's Community for Children, and the Department of Treaty, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Partnerships, Communities and the Arts. We seek today your endorsement of our committee membership and also a slight change in the terms of reference, which expands the membership from 6 to 8. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. Thanks, Jacqueline. I'm happy with your recommendation. I do have a question about the youth representation. If we can't encourage someone outside council, we have staff in council. I don't know, we don't need it in the recommendation, but maybe it's something the CEO could consider. They do that in their work time so that we make sure we include the youth perspective on this committee. It's a big committee. Be very difficult to work on a committee that big, but I'm sure that they do a very fantastic job from what I've seen so far. But I certainly would like to see, if we can't get a community youth representative, that we consider an internal member of our staff under 24 that fits into that category. Questions, councillors? Councillor Davis. And then, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kylie, I've just got a question. Do you feel like the current amount of committee members is not sufficient? Like, I think, as the Mayor said, I think 14 is a very large committee, and I'm just not sure if it would be very workable.
Thank you for the question, and certainly we also had similar feelings. What we're seeing, though, are these are volunteers that are willing to work within their community networks to capture what the community feedback is around Phillip Street. We're also, I think there's an opportunity here for succession planning for some of the membership as well. Understanding the Phillip Street model does take a little bit of time, so there is benefit of keeping some of our existing members and educating some new members. Jacqueline does keep us very well coordinated and organised, so I'm not seeing an impact at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Patrick, then Councillor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kylie, just a quick question. Just with relations to going back to the expression of interest, when we put out the expression of interest, was it for specific roles for the Phillip Street and Family Precinct? And are we ensuring, even though we're now asking for the amendments, I just want to make sure that it's an even playing field being commuted throughout community, particularly when we are creating new positions after the application or has closed of the expression of interest. Yeah.
That's a good question. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. When we established the terms of reference for the advisory committee, the council of the time wanted to have specific segments of our community to ensure that their voice was being incorporated into our decision making. So we did, in the expression of interest, deliberately go out for certain positions. We did come, as part of the interview process, we did come to the realisation that we're capturing the voice of our young people and also our senior community, but nothing really in the middle there. So it was an opportunity for us to, I guess, engage a volunteer to capture that component that we were missing. So that, yeah, so we did appoint it was a direct appointing to that role. Yeah.
So with that in mind, is there somewhere in the process that we can somehow broaden when the expression of interest goes out? I'm kind of resident to say that because it is quite a big committee now. I would not really want to see that committee go too much bigger than 14. It would be on one of the largest sort of committees, I would imagine. So is there a way of tightening that up at all?
We have 17 members in our Saiki advisory committee, and I believe they're operating really well. So we do, yeah, I think the membership is manageable at this point in time, yeah.
Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thanks for doing this review. And I'd also like to commend those that are returning and the ones that have been there in the past, because I think they've done an amazing job and there's some wonderful names on this list, so well done. In terms of the youth, I'm just wondering, did we ask the youth council members? Yeah, I'm assuming you would have. Yeah,
we have. The youth councillors, we are working through a manageable workload for our young people. The majority of our youth council are in their senior years, which is a huge workload academically on itself. So.
Senior school years.
Yeah.
Just to clarify. Yeah.
Senior school years.
Thank you, Councillor.
Good point.
Excellent. I was just wondering too, did we by any chance reach out to the schools? I just had the pleasure of helping interview some of the potential student leaders at State High, and there were some amazing ones, amazing students there, and some of them are actually on some of our voluntary committees and what have you, and I was just wondering whether, I'm assuming you have, but they were amazing.
Do you want to jump in now? Yep.
Sorry, my microphone wasn't working. Sorry, and I just had to get some information. So the the young people, we didn't go directly to schools. What we are finding difficult is the meetings are actually in school hours.
Oh, okay.
So it does restrict membership there. But we can certainly go, we can talk to the committee around timings of meetings and things like that.
They might be able to Teams in too from the
true.
school if they're at a lunch break or something.
Yeah,
I
very
just
true.
thought, I know in the newsletter sometimes they allow you to put things in, but the calibre of these were just unbelievable. So I thought, yeah, it'd be good to capture them. Thank you.
It's a great point. Thank you.
I have Councillor McClintock, but if you don't have something you need to reply to that, or can it wait? Councillor McClintock, then Muscat.
Mike, you comment before, Kylie, about the capturing that gap between the younger and the older, and the little bit of a lack of the younger, and the challenges in that is obviously there as well. But you're talking about, just to clarify, were you talking about this general member or these extra members, the idea being that we get them into that gap between the older and the younger?
Yes, that's the intention, Councillor McClintock. So we have a range from, there's a gap from 25 to 65, where we didn't have any representation for at all. We couldn't think of a name to call that age group, to be honest. So that's why it's a general member.
Yep, I can think of a few, but probably not nice ones. No, I guess my question, obviously, I know specifically the general member that you've suggested there, Desley, has quite experience in this here. Are we content that we asked for that? Like, has that gone, and that Desley is that her best description of that gap? Or is she actually tapping into a different thing that's worth having there, perhaps? I'm not saying that's not the case, but if we're aiming for that families and younger demographic, I'm just not sure that is exactly what her expertise or what she brings strength to the table. So if we're going to bring her in, that's fine, but do it probably in a way that we still have space for that younger demographic somehow. I don't know. I don't know really what I'm asking, except to make sure we got that gap in there.
Can I? Do you mind if I
Yeah,
add to your
add,
question?
yeah.
Is that okay? Thank you. Yeah, because first, and coming from Councillor Patrick, if we create a new position, then the expectation will be that we advertise it and open it to the public to fill, not that we fill it. I mean, we obviously created a position based on the applications that we had, which it seems to be kind of the other way around. And so if we have a general community member, which is, okay, I don't have a problem in a way, but why haven't other people in the community been given the opportunity to apply? Then the other thing, again, adding to Councillor McClintock, is that, and I know it's difficult, is that the broad coverage of people that use the facilities. I think we do definitely need to consider a change of timing, not necessarily just for young people, but I can see that there's no many males as well, and it is very much an older generation that we're seeing in, well, I'm pretty confident. There's a couple I don't know, but they will be kind of maybe my age or older. So obviously it is because there's people that might be part of their job, or it is linked to the job, which is great that they're making the time to come, but there's other people that be working and they're not able to come during business hours. And that happens a lot in this town with men, which might want to actually be engaged and they're not able to. Or mums too. Well, depends how.
It's a really great point. Thank you, Councillor Muscat. We'll take that to the committee around a change of, and Councillor McClintock, sorry, around a change of timing. If councillors would like us to conduct another expression of interest for the general community member, happy to follow that process.
I think probably, yeah, just to clarify, not at all opposed to Desley specifically as a general member there. Just if our target, it was just I flagged what you said before about our target being that gap between 25 and 65. If that is our gap, I don't know that general member targets that specifically, and or that we've actually gone out and asked people in that demographic specifically to fill that void. Perhaps we created, I don't know, anyway, yeah, just some terminology around it that does fill that gap more accurately in that sort of 35 target range, mums and dads type of thing. I think that's great.
Before I go to Councillor Goodluck, I still think Councillor O'Grady, or former Councillor O'Grady, meets the criteria for senior community representative. We have 2 disability community representatives, 2 culturally linguistic diverse community representatives, and I'm still happy to appoint Desley to the committee today, regardless of what type of committee position it is. Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, from my point of view, we did do the expression of interest. We got the applications. Former Councillor O'Grady I think she was on the committee prior, so there's a continuity component to this. She's obviously got, a lot of knowledge and experience there that would be valuable to keep for a period of time until the next wave of people come through. So I really am not fussed on whether we call the position a general member. I don't think we necessarily need to go out to it again because we've just done that process. I take on board what you're saying, Councillor McClintock, about targeting that demographic, but it seems that we have to do some more work to be able to hit those targets irrespective of whether we do it now or not, and I'm sure that that will be something that we'll endeavour to do. But I'm comfortable with the recommendation as it is, personally.
Thank you. Councillor Holzheimer.
This might seem like a naive question, however, for that middle age group, I would actually see that on the advisory committee you actually have us. So I'm in that age group. Leanne, Councillor Patrick is actually in that age group, and so are you, Kylie. So that age group is actually represented, even though it's represented by councillors and staff as well. So we've kind of got that covered by us being on the committee as well. So I would say that we've kind of ticked that box, even though none of us are in that raising kids kind of phase of our life as well.
Can I propose an adjustment where we appoint former Councillor O'Grady in as a secondary senior community member?
Mm-hmm. And then leave the what do you call it? Oh no, what else were we amending?
The terms of reference. I think you'd still require that because of that's the numbers that you're exceeding, if that's what councillors have in mind to do.
All right. So is anyone happy to move that way? Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Seconded, Councillor Muscat. Officer's recommendation with that amendment. Senior community representative. Sorry if you're listening online, Desley. You're a senior rep now. She probably will be. She's very passionate about this committee. Okay, no further questions or comments. I put the motion all in favour. Those against? Motion's carried. You're a bit late there, Councillor Goodluck. Thank you, but I'll take you as voting in favour. Motion's carried. Thank you. All right, we move to councillor reports. Then the first councillor report is the World Hydrogen Summit. Councillors, that is there for you. I might throw to the CEO if she would like to speak to that as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's a fair bit of information in the report and I'm happy to take any questions. It was a really interesting experience. It was a massive scale event with representation from many different countries. Gladstone was certainly the name on everyone's lips, and we had lots of conversations and engagements, and there were some activities around the summit that were really interesting, particularly the business matching event, and I've made a summary there of some of the interesting organisations we spoke to and some of the technology. So a lot of the technology around the production of hydrogen and solid oxide technology we learnt a lot about, which is really an emerging technology that's getting a lot of attention and uses steam rather than water, so it has some savings there in terms of cost and environmental impact. So that was really interesting. And the last one on that page there, Devic, Maximus from Devic is actually visiting Queensland with Trade and Investment Queensland visit next week, and he's also coming to Gladstone as part of that visit, so he'll actually be here next week. So it's great to see some of those connections that we've made that are translating, and that was quite fascinating, the hydrogen vehicles that they organise, these long-term hire arrangements.
What name did you call him?
Oh, Maximilian,
Yeah.
sorry.
I was gonna say,
Sorry.
that's not his name. Yeah,
Can't get the words out today. He plays in my son's footy team, Maximus Sprack. It's Maximilian Pole, sorry. But lots of great leads that we made there. We created an enormous amount of interest in the APAC Hydrogen Summit, which is in Brisbane in September, and people to come to visit Gladstone as part of that activity as an excursion. But I'll hand over to you, Mr.
Absolutely. I think as part of APAC we'll see a very keen interest. It's either going to be the day before or a day after the summit in Brisbane, and I'm not sure how they're going to fit them all on the plane, but they might even have to put another flight on. That's how much the interest in Gladstone is. We sent Gary Scanlon last year because I thought, it's too far to go to Rotterdam, and I wasn't sure of the value of the summit. But having been there firsthand, we absolutely need to be there next year. The Australian pavilion was very well attended. South Australia has a significant portion of that, and Queensland is the only other state that has a section as well. And the whole wall of the called it the Gladstone Pavilion, the Queensland Pavilion is Gladstone. The whole wall is our port, and everything anyone wanted to talk about was Gladstone. And if you have a look at a map on Australia, up on the wall in the Australian Pavilion, it had the hydrogen or renewable energy component projects around the nation, and there's one or two over in Western Australia, and there's one or two down in South Australia, and I think maybe one in Victoria, one in New South Wales, a couple in Queensland, and then there's massive big lot of dots around Gladstone. When you think of the Rio Tinto Sumitomo project, you think of the Iwatani and Stanwell project. Acciona, even though it's not a hydrogen project, will be providing green energy. You have a look at the Fortescue project, not just the one they've done and completed and is operational, producing and manufacturing electrolyzers, the new project, their PEM50 project. And then there's so many more other projects that are in the pipeline. You even look at Alpha HPA, which is all using green energy to produce their high purity alumina. What is happening in Gladstone is being noticed around the world, and the interest is huge. And actually one of the best connections we made was actually with an Australian company from Perth. And I've since connected them up with the Port of Gladstone and Engineering Alliance and others. So we made sure those connections have flowed through, and our Economic Development Specialist has a lot of leads to follow up on, because I won't have enough time to follow up on them all because there was that many. Absolutely well worth attending that. Please do. Unfortunately, this year they didn't, which was a shame, but we met, Lisa and I met with the port beforehand, and they gave us a briefing on everything we needed to know port future development-wise, which we're pretty much around anyway, but it was good to have that extra information to be able to provide that. I'm sure they will next year. I would hesitate, I guess, that because there was a state election in October, they're probably trying to stay away from international travel, which is a bit short-sighted in my mind, not from the Gladstone port, because I'm sure they would like to have been there, but probably, maybe, could be assuming wrong, a direction from state government. We certainly had Fortescue was there, Sumitomo was there, Stanwell was there, and Gladstone Regional Council was there. So the Team Gladstone was very, very big. And it would have been nice next year to have the Engineering Alliance too. So Alison, if you're watching, we make sure every time we take the GEA with us, and the University of Central Queensland University was there as well, represented as well. So Shrith, how could I forget them? That very, very important part of the delegation. That's right. Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Any further questions on that? No. Do we need to receive it, or? I'll move that the recommendation be received. Thank you, Councillor Churchill. All in favour? It's carried. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor Matt. I had the privilege of attending a conference, the LGAQ Civic Leaders Summit, along with Mayor Matt Burnett and Councillor Simon McClintock. It was a great experience to be able to go down to the Gold Coast and network with lots of other new councillors, but also very esteemed councillors and mayors and CEOs. This summit was, it's an annual event that is a standout in Australian local government. This summit embodies the LGA's Q's credo, connect, innovate and achieve. The timing of this summit is ideal for setting a strong foundation for local government priorities for the next 4 years. It focuses on sharpening aims, mapping out necessary achievements and uniting the local council and communities. So I've kind of broke the report up into day one into highlights. So the first highlight was we were talking about livability, the journey so far and where we are, and some of the discussions on why livability is a crucial goal, and strategies for telling our region's stories and excellence in advocacy. And I think today, highlighting and champion our Gladstone Regional Council officers and staff and leadership team is just an example of how well we are positioned within the Queensland LGAQ as well. The workshops we attended we tried to split them up, so we got around to these workshops, was future-proofing local government workforce, leadership in risk management and embracing the digital in local government, take it or leave it. That was quite a big debate as well. We did see Mayor Matt feature in the disaster readiness in the panel there, and he gave a very heartfelt and very earnest recall on what it's like to navigate leadership through a natural disaster, and we should be really proud of him as our mayor in able to navigate natural disasters in such a manner as what he did. The day concluded with a summit dinner, which provided excellent networking opportunities, and we connected with LGAQ executive team and a diverse group of colleagues from across Queensland. We then moved into day two, the highlights being livability and financial stability. Really important topics were challenges facing local government in Queensland and that cost shifting, sustainable factors impacting council financial performance and financial forecasts for the upcoming 4 years or term. And also we looked at rethinking council services. What opportunities have we got to improve services to ratepayers and enhancing council's efficiency and productivity? Then we went into excellence in governance, importance of relationships and culture and governance, and a panel discussion featuring councillors. My personal reflection, attending the LGAQ Civic Leaders Summit was an enriching experience. As a newly elected councillor, the learning curve is very steep and is an event that provided understanding of various duties required to serve community effectively. The knowledge gained is empowering, and I am very grateful that I had the opportunity to attend this summit. I'll hand over to Mayor Matt Burnett or Councillor Simon McClintock for their reflections.
Thank you. Fantastic summit, of course, and I think you've captured it well on our behalf. Councillor McClintock.
Yeah, I think it was beyond what went on actually as an event, there was a great opportunity to connect with other people and network with other, I guess, councils and different levels of organisational members within council, from CEOs to mayors and other councillors. So I quite enjoyed some of the conversations I was able to have with how other districts and other places are approaching issues within their regions and issues that perhaps we've got or are emerging in our area that others have already had to attend to. So I think it was really personally beneficial, but also a really incredible time. And I managed to get there with my luggage. That was good.
Whole other story. Well done. Thank you. Any questions, councillors?
So I just move that this
be received. It says
be
so.
Received.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Put the motion. All in favour. Motion's carried. There's any further council reports? No further council reports, no urgent business, no notices of motion, no confidential items. Declare the meeting closed 11:41. Thank you for your attendance.